Why mother lost her dad when she was fairly young. Her stepmother never liked her and always prevented her from coming to visit even when she only lived 2 towns over. Her stepmom, I'll call her N for the sake of keeping things short, was apparently into drugs around the time of his death. He died in car accident. His truck ran off the road and hit a tree. Seems pretty cut and dry, right? Wrong. There wasn't much blood at the scene, which lead the officials to believe that he had died before the impact. It's always been labeled as a suspected heart attack, but he was very young to have died of heart failure. Here's where the conspiracy comes in. He and N were in the middle of a divorce when he died. It was only about 2 weeks from being finalized when the accident happened. Because of N's drug problems and other factors, she was projected to lose everything. The house, the kids, all the major assets were almost certainly going to end up with him. She didn't want to lose everything. I mean, who would? N worked at a hospital at the time and potentially had access to all kinds of strong medications. Basically, my mom's side thinks that she drugged him that morning, causing him to go unconscious or perhaps even killing him before the crash. Apparently in the time leading up to his death he seemed anxious. He was in the process of transferring all his assets somewhere N wouldn't be able to get them, and he was in a rush to do it. It doesn't make sense for him to do that weeks away from the divorce being finalized though, at least not unless he was scared something would happen. He gave possessions he wanted handed down to his children to his close friends for safekeeping, making sure N wouldn't be able to sell or dispose of them. He took out a new life insurance policy and listed my mother and grandmother, his first wife, as the beneficiaries. He also told them he was writing a new will where my mom would inherit everything instead of N. Why bother doing that if she wasn't going to be married to him anymore by the end of the month? It was highly suspicious to say the least, and as a result my mom's family demanded an autopsy be performed to determine the cause of death, but the divorce hadn't been finalized. It wasn't up to them. N refused the autopsy. Because of this the family was so divided there were 2 separate funerals, as putting everyone together would have most likely broken into violence. The part that makes me doubt is that there was no reason to deny the autopsy. If it was a heart attack, that would be important to know for family medical history given how young he was when he died. Also, if it were me, I would have it performed simply to clear my own name. If she truly had nothing to do with it, why not prove her innocence? What was she trying to hide? I never knew about this growing up. Only that there was a strange energy every time we went to visit that side of the family. It wasn't until I turned 18 and my grandmother told me the story that I understood why. I never heard my mom talk about it up until last year. When a pie trying to make some cash said they could collect his life insurance policy for us if we gave them a cut of the money. Turns out he did take out that policy after all. We just never knew about it because he listed his work address instead of his home address to keep the money out of N's hands. Apparently it was public record and the pie found it. That's when my mom told me about the policy and the will. Apparently he did write it up after all, just never officiated it. My mom found the draft listing her as the beneficiary on his nightstand after he died. Didn't mean anything though. A draft isn't legally binding. I don't know what to think anymore. I know that N never seemed to like me or my mom very much. Regardless, because of her I will never know how my grandfather died, and for that I will never forgive her.